Hello and welcome to This Really Happened, a place where unbelievable, heart-touching true stories come to life. Sometimes surprising, sometimes bittersweet, always real. Grab a drink and settle in. We're about to begin. Sarah carefully arranged the golden brown cinnamon buns on the tray. At first, the thought crossed her mind to wrap each one in a separate bag, but she immediately dismissed it. They'd be snatched up instantly anyway, and in wrapping they'd lose their appeal. Let them lie there appetizingly instead, pleasing to the eye. "Oh, brought your own buns, did you?" A sarcastic voice called out from behind her, making Sarah involuntarily flinch. "Good heavens, Brenda, for goodness sake, why do you walk so silently? It's like you do it on purpose just to scare me." Her colleague Brenda smirked. "And why not? What if you're up to something you shouldn't be? Then I'll have leverage, and I can use it if the opportunity arises." Sarah frowned. "Brenda, you're unbearable." Brenda placed a hand on her shoulder. "Oh, come on, I just said it. It's a joke. And I'm not sneaking up. I always walk silently, as if you didn't know." Sarah remained silent. She knew Brenda's nature well. You could expect any meanness from that woman. Sarah had noticed more than once how Brenda cheated customers, fiddling with the scales, shortchanging them, and sometimes even leaving items out of the bag. She was cunning, knew who she could pull a fast one on. She had a special knack, could sense from a mile away who she could trick and who was better left alone. Of course, Sarah didn't tell anyone what she saw, not even the store owner. Tattling and snitching wasn't in her nature, but Brenda loved it. 6 months ago, one of the saleswomen was fired because of Brenda. Brenda had set up the situation and slandered her to the owner. That's why Sarah had no doubt that Brenda, finding even the slightest reason to blacken her name, would certainly use it. But there was nothing to accuse Sarah of. She was flawless, didn't sneak food, and was honest with customers. And she got along well with the owner, Mr. Harrison. As soon as she came to work for him, he immediately took a liking to her. Sarah felt that he had almost fatherly feelings for her. He saw almost a daughter in her. That's why he allowed her to sell her homemade baked goods so she could earn extra money. It was because of this that Brenda apparently harbored resentment towards her and sought any opportunity to compromise her. However, simple slanders wouldn't work. Mr. Harrison trusted Sarah too much to take someone's word for it. Here, strong grounds were needed. "Why are you so quiet today? I've asked you several times and you're not answering," Brenda said. "Huh? Did you ask something?" Sarah snapped back to attention. "I'm saying you don't look well today. Didn't get enough sleep, I bet? Your gentleman caller keeping you up?" Brenda asked, smiling. Sarah frowned, answering with annoyance. "What gentleman caller? Brenda, you're starting to annoy me. I don't have anyone. You know I'm not in the mood for romances." Brenda adjusted her hair, looked at herself in a small mirror, touched up her lipstick, and snapped the mirror shut. She stubbornly continued, "And it's a great shame that you don't have anyone. How many years have passed since your husband left you? It's been 5 years already, hasn't it?" "6 years have passed," Sarah replied gloomily. "How can you live so many years without a man, Sarah? You should have gone through a dozen of them by now, and you're still alone, wasting away. It would be one thing if you had a husband. Look at me, for example, after a passionate night with my husband, I'm just glowing. But look at yourself in the mirror. You look like a shadow, nothing but circles under your eyes. If your insomnia was because of a man, you'd look different. Your cold bed will soon turn you into a dried-up mummy." "Brenda, are you out of your mind? What men? My daughter is sick. I didn't sleep because of her. I sat by her bed all night. The cough is choking her again. Nothing helps. And you with your talk. I'm happy for you, but I'm not in the mood for this." Brenda turned away huffily and busied herself with her work. She was trying to provoke envy, to show how wonderful her personal life was, while Sarah couldn't find a man. She wanted to sting her where it hurt most. It annoyed her that Sarah didn't rise to the bait. And Sarah thought about how much she wished all the buns would sell today. Take the earnings and go straight to the pharmacy to buy medicine for Emily. Several hours of work passed. Almost all the buns were sold, only a couple left. Brenda watched Sarah with unconcealed envy. The cinnamon buns were in special demand. People really liked them. Regular customers asked when fresh buns would be available. So good, you want to buy more and more. Sarah was beaming with joy. With Mr. Harrison's permission, she brought her buns 3 times a week. They flew off the shelves long before closing time. Finally, the last bun found its buyer. Sarah took the required amount from the till, made a note in the thick ledger lying under the counter, and put the money in her pocket. "What are you doing here? Let's see what's in your pockets." Sarah flinched, then burst out laughing. "Mr. Harrison, you scared me too." The store owner shook his head sympathetically. "Sarah, you seem a bit on edge lately, and you look very tired. Is something wrong?" "No, nothing special. Everything's as usual. Emily is coughing badly again. I don't know what to do. Here, I took the earnings for the buns. I'll go to the pharmacy and buy medicine. I hope she'll feel better." Mr. Harrison looked closely at her worn face. He genuinely felt sorry for her. No one took care of her. She only took care of everyone else. She had taken on so much that her shoulders could barely bear the load. But she flatly refused any help that Mr. Harrison offered her. She didn't want to feel obligated, although he offered help from the bottom of his heart, without any conditions, and all because of her cursed ex-husband. He kept telling her during her maternity leave that she owed him everything. She had to sit silently with the child, had to manage the household herself, go shopping, had to carry heavy things, had to meekly endure insults, had to patiently wait for him from his night escapades with who knows whom and where, and then, of course, put him to bed drunk. She had to forget about herself as a person, and most importantly, that she was a woman. He had turned her into a frightened mouse, afraid to squeak. Mr. Harrison was sure that this had left a mark on her daughter, which was why the child was so frail and sickly. "Of course, Sarah, go home an hour early today. I'm letting you off. You'll have time for the pharmacy and to sit with your daughter. Brenda can manage alone." Sarah smiled gratefully and sincerely thanked the owner. This conversation did not escape Brenda's notice. As soon as Mr. Harrison left, she immediately swooped down on Sarah. "Look at that. Soon you'll stop working altogether. The boss will just pay you for batting your eyelashes at him." "Brenda, you're at it again. What nonsense are you talking? He just treats me well, that's all. I'm grateful to him. He restored my faith that the world isn't without kind people." But Brenda narrowed her eyes and smirked maliciously. "Oh yes, kind ones, but behind this kindness there's a completely different intention. He's clearly counting on something more than just your gratitude. Hasn't he hinted yet how you can thank him? It's just a matter of time. The hints will start soon. You'll see. I know all about this. I've seen it hundreds of times. As soon as a man does something for a woman, expect gratitude right away. I don't think I need to explain what kind of gratitude we're talking about. Bed, Sarah, only bed. For men, that's always the priority. Let me give you a piece of advice. Don't refuse when he suggests getting closer. Be affectionate, attentive, show care, and you'll have happiness. Who knows, maybe you won't even have to work. He'll help you, and even raise your child. Sarah almost choked with indignation. She blushed. imagining what Brenda was talking about. She looked around fearfully, afraid someone would hear, and then whispered, "What are you saying, Brenda? You've definitely gone mad. Mr. Harrison would never do something like that. He's married and he treats me like a father. You wouldn't understand. I don't want to talk about this anymore. If you say anything like that again, I'll stop talking to you." Brenda snorted and walked away, and Sarah couldn't recover for a long time. Could what her colleague said really be true? Sarah felt sick at the thought that Mr. Harrison might be hinting at intimacy, not because he was unpleasant to her, but because he was a mentor, a friend, an older brother, almost a father to her, but by no means a potential lover. Sarah left an hour earlier. On the way to the pharmacy, she remembered her ex-husband. Because of him, she hadn't waited for David to return from the army. Mark had swept her off her feet in a matter of hours. They met at a party and never parted again. They got married 2 months later. Sarah still blamed herself for not even telling David about the wedding in person. She just wrote a letter and left with her husband for another city. Only the marriage turned out not to be so cloudless. The first 5 years were quite good. They lived in perfect harmony. After she got pregnant, which happened 5 years later, Mark changed. It was as if his wife's pregnancy disgusted him. He constantly mocked her, didn't touch her, stopped being supportive. It was a difficult pregnancy. She was tormented by terrible morning sickness, but her husband offered no support. After the child was born, the situation worsened. He had been expecting a son, but a daughter was born, and he constantly reproached Sarah, blaming her for it. While Sarah was on maternity leave, he blamed her for everything, never helped. On weekends, he went out with friends until morning. Sarah suspected there were other women there, but she didn't dare to utter a sound. Sarah came back from maternity leave, but couldn't work. Emily was constantly sick, and eventually Sarah was forced to quit her job. Her husband's abuse intensified, and 6 months later he left her, or rather kicked her out. The apartment belonged to him. "I don't need you anymore, and your sick daughter either. Take her and get out to your mother's place. There's nothing for you here anymore. I've filed for divorce and I'm getting married soon. I've found someone else, completely unlike you. She's beautiful and cheerful, and you're like a doormat." Sarah and her daughter returned to her hometown. This marriage left a deep mark. She was no longer the carefree and cheerful girl she used to be. Now she was an exhausted, tired, nervous woman, trying to provide her daughter with everything she needed through her own work. It was good that they lived with her mother, so they didn't have to spend money on housing. Otherwise, they wouldn't have survived. Sarah snapped out of her memories, finding herself at the pharmacy. She bought the necessary medicine and went home. The next day, Sarah came to work, and an unexpected piece of news awaited them. Mr. Harrison was leaving for Moscow with his wife. His wife had health problems, and he was leaving his son-in-law in charge. "He has a daughter. I didn't know. Why did he never say?" Sarah whispered to Brenda. "Well, I thought you knew. She's been gone a long time. She was only 25. Cancer. Something with her brain, it seems. They said she suffered terribly, screamed from the pain. Horrible. Her husband was by her side until the end, although there were rumours that he married for convenience, supposedly loved someone else, but she left him. But those are just rumours. I don't know what's true." However, after his daughter's death, Mr. Harrison maintained good relations with his son-in-law, and now he will manage the store. Interesting. What kind of guy is he? What can we expect from him? Maybe he'll let me sell my buns too. And Brenda giggled maliciously. The next day, Mr. Harrison brought his son-in-law to brief him on the business. When he approached the staff to introduce him, Sarah felt the ground disappear from under her feet. It was as if she was thrown up and then sharply dropped. She held her breath, and her heart pounded with frantic force, as if ready to leap from her chest. Standing before them was David. This was her former fiancé, whom she hadn't waited for to return from the army. It was him. Strangely, he had barely changed. But Sarah had changed a lot. He didn't even recognize her. His gaze swept over her, expressing nothing. He smiled politely, making it clear that working with him would be simple as long as the rules weren't broken. But his gaze didn't linger on Sarah for a second. Mr. Harrison began briefing David on the business, and Sarah worked all day, flinching at every sound of his voice, whether it was a customer or her colleague. Then Mr. Harrison and David left. Sarah felt lost, and she felt awkward. Now she would have to see David every day. What if he did recognize her? Or on the contrary, he wouldn't recognize her and would interact formally, like with the other staff. Sarah didn't know which was worse. The situation was resolved that same evening. Her colleague left earlier, and Sarah stayed behind, waiting for the security guard. The security guard was late. The store needed to be closed. Sarah took the keys when she heard a door slam. "The store is closed, sorry," Sarah called out and stepped out from behind the counter. And then she stopped dead, not knowing how to act. Standing before her was David. He was staring intently at her, and from his gaze it was impossible to tell what he was thinking. Then he said, "Hello, Sarah. Hello again." "You recognized me? I thought I had changed beyond recognition." David shook his head. "No, that's just how it seems to you." They fell silent. Sarah didn't know what to say, and then Sarah realized it was now or never. "David, forgive me. Forgive me for what I did back then. You can be sure I paid fully, and I'll be paying for it for the rest of my life." "You know, we were too young," David replied. "I realized that over time. At first I was angry, even hated you. But then I realized that I was demanding too much from you. I think that scared you away. I just needed to love, but I only demanded. You simply met someone who loved you, who didn't demand anything, but gave, and I made a mistake." Sarah lowered her eyes. "He was a monster. He broke me," she whispered. "I thought I deserved it. I shouldn't have treated you like that. I got what I deserved." David wanted to say something, but didn't get the chance. Sarah's mobile phone rang. She picked up the receiver. It was her mother calling. "Yes? What, I'm coming?" Sarah burst into tears. "What happened?" David grabbed Sarah by the shoulders. "My daughter Emily, she's choking. I need to get home urgently." David quickly locked the store. He drove Sarah home in his car. Emily had such a severe coughing fit that she started choking. She couldn't get enough air. David took Emily and Sarah to the hospital. He went in himself and quickly arranged for help. Everything happened very quickly. Emily was given help. The danger had passed. When the doctor came out and said that the girl would be kept overnight, but her life was not in danger, Sarah burst into tears. David held her close and said, "Everything will be all right." Emily had a severe allergic reaction. Sarah had been treating a common cough, but it wasn't just a cold, it was an allergy. David continued to help. A few days later, he brought in a specialist from another city. The doctor examined the girl and ordered tests. David paid for everything. The results were sent to the doctor, who prescribed treatment. And for the first time in several years, Emily stopped suffering from the cough. The treatment turned out to be long and expensive. Perhaps she would have to take medication for life, although the doctor allowed for the possibility that Emily might outgrow the illness. The main thing was that the cause of her frequent illnesses had been found. Sarah was happy. Emily changed a lot. She wasn't sick as often anymore, became more cheerful, became a normal child, and all this was thanks to David. 2 months passed. All this time, David and Sarah communicated sporadically, mostly about Emily's issues. When Emily recovered, the calls stopped. Then Mr. Harrison returned with his wife. His wife had recovered, rehabilitation was needed, but that was minor. The owner returned to business, and David disappeared. Sarah was longing, her heart ached. She realized that what she felt for David was not just gratitude, but something more. 2 weeks after Mr. Harrison's return, David came to her house. It was a weekend. He came with a bouquet of flowers, a large box of chocolates, and a bag of sweets for Emily. The girl took the bag to her room. Sarah's mother went into the living room, leaving them in the kitchen. And David confessed that he could no longer hide his feelings. He still loved Sarah and had never stopped loving her. He had married Mr. Harrison's daughter, trying to forget Sarah, but he couldn't. And now his feelings had flared up with new intensity and gave him no peace. He realized that if he didn't tell Sarah everything, he would never forgive himself. "I love you even more than I did when we were young. I don't want to hide my feelings anymore." Sarah just hugged David without saying a word. 6 months passed. David and Sarah got married, and David took his wife and daughter to live with him. Sarah no longer worked at the store. She stopped working altogether. David was well off and didn't want his wife to overwork herself. Sarah took care of the house, herself, her daughter, and her husband. Mr. Harrison was happy. He considered Sarah his daughter and David his son. They maintained a wonderful relationship with him. Sarah was transformed. She no longer considered herself unattractive, wasn't worn out and tired. She blossomed. David's love brought her back to life, and she was happy that everything had turned out this way. Perhaps to find such happiness, they had to go through mistakes. Only after that did they truly appreciate love.